The bar just got raised for everyone writing with AI. Generic AI text used to pass as fine, but today it reads like worse than nothing. If you're still typing a generic task into Claude, your audience will ignore it. They just won't pay attention to that kind of content. Every generic post that you ship burns down the knowledge archive you've spent a decade building, post by post. By the way, I'm a professor who built a 180,000 person audience part-time by writing about ideas most people said couldn't go viral. I've been building these systems for senior researchers, founders, and consultants for more than 2 years now. By the end of this video, you'll walk away with 3 concrete action steps. I'll show you how to flip your constraints so you can give Claude better instructions, a technique that makes the model interview you before it writes a single sentence, and a 5-file folder system that loads your full context at the start of each session so you stop re-explaining yourself from scratch. How you use Claude or any AI model now matters more than which model you actually pick. If you want your writing to sound like it comes from a person instead of sounding like a press release, then these 3 workflows will get you way ahead. Uno. Switch from telling the model what you want to telling it what to avoid. Dos. Make it interview you before it writes anything, and make it tell you when it doesn't know enough. Tres. Stop starting cold. Load persistent context at the start of each session. You know what? 2 years ago, a generic task prompt was the default that we used with generative AI. We weren't really clear about the difference between vague instructions and structured instructions because we were all just getting started with how to best instruct an LLM. But today, this lack of understanding will show in your output. So the 3 actions I'll outline in this video will guide you toward becoming an expert in AI prompting. The thing that I've noticed most senior people don't understand yet about the improved frontier LLMs that we work with every day is that polished generic AI output used to be neutral. You could think of it like a beige wall in a hotel lobby, which you don't love, you don't hate, you just kind of move on. But then, in the 2025 to 2026 model generation, output quality has really just escalated to crazy heights right now. And because the bar has moved so much, your polished generic text is now just a negative indicator of your prompting skills. Your audience will pick up on the boring writing rhythm and conclude that you didn't do your homework and you didn't think enough about the thing that you just produced. And hey, I don't blame you. You just typed a simple task and shipped the output. But that's the epitome of work slop or undergrad assignment submissions that we have to deal with every day as professors. But in the head of your audience, you get filed next to some boring administrator that you really don't want to sound like. And yet most experts that I work with still type a generic prompt into Claude and just ship that first draft. This is the same recipe that I've used when I got started. But while this workflow might have been cool 2 years ago, the models have improved so much that you actually have to update your workflows because your audience can now tell. I call this lazy slop. Claude can't fix it for you. It just runs off with whatever workflow you bring to it. Crap in, crap out. You're putting lipstick on a pig. The bar got raised, so you have to make that jump or vanish. Making it starts with how you give instructions. The first action that I'd recommend is counterintuitive. Your instinct will be to tell the model what you want, just write naturally, sound conversational, or avoid jargon. But the current AI research is really clear on this. Positive preferences work as weak suggestions. An AI model just treats them as one signal amongst thousands. And negative constraints work differently. They close off default paths that Claude would take. Claude can't take the easy route and has to stay in the lane that you've defined for it. AI research on multi-constraint instruction following consistently shows that restrictions are easier to follow than preferences because Claude can somewhat satisfy a preference while it has to fully respect a restriction. Just think of it this way. If you tell Claude to write naturally, it's like telling your contractor to build you something nice. But if you tell Claude to not use em dashes, to not open with a question, not to use AI words like delve, or not to use antithetical parallel constructions like not A, but B, then you're handing Claude a spec sheet. And hey, Claude really loves a good spec sheet. Here's the restriction block I drop into writing tasks. Do not overuse em dashes, do not open with a question, do not use failure mode, delve, holistic, navigate, unlock, game changer. Do not write a filler intro, and do not use antithesis constructions like this isn't X, it's Y. Gosh, I'm tired of those. 5 simple lines of instructions. That's your simplest action. You can build your own version in 3 different layers. Layer 1. Look for generic AI tells. So these are words that the current generation of the model overuses. You can find those on Wikipedia or just by reading a lot of AI slop, unfortunately. Second, you want to study your competitors and find the phrases that the people in the same category as you reach for when they run out of ideas. You don't want to use those words. Layer 3. Get clarity on what your personal voice sounds like, specifically what words you would never say in conversation or at a party. Because those quirky little dingbats are going to make you sound like a robot. Generic bands are for starters, but your personalized band list gives Claude clarity on who you are. So before I show you how to make Claude interview you, just a quick aside. A lot of you watching are sitting on serious credentials and serious expertise, but your market still can't tell why you matter. I call this a positioning problem, and Claude can't fix it for you because AI will faithfully amplify whatever vague positioning you already feed it. So I built a 5-minute quiz that diagnoses the exact bottleneck keeping your expertise from showing up as visible authority. It tells your expert type and the one thing blocking your demand. The link is in the description and pinned in the top comment. Take it after the video. So once your bands are in place, the next move is to stop guessing what Claude needs and let Claude tell you. Smart move right there. So the easiest mistake to avoid here is when you're using AI to not just describe what you want in a voice brief or a tone description and just hand that off to Claude, but to actually get Claude to pull that information from you. And there's actually research out there that explains why that's so effective. AI models are significantly better at imitating examples than at following abstract descriptions. A research study has benchmarked this directly by testing a range of frontier models on inferential and conditional rule following across a large data set. And it turns out that models failed at rule following at scale because abstract descriptions carry far less information than concrete examples. And you can implement this easily with Claude. First, just show the model. Drop 5 of your best pieces into a Claude project, just the full text. Pick the ones that read like your best morning write-up. This can be as simple as a social post that you really enjoyed reading, of course one of the ones that you've written yourself, a newsletter issue or an article that you've published without too many edits, or it could just be a chapter draft that you didn't have to apologize to your editor for. Thanks for being patient with me, Dan. Think about what each piece does to the reader and why it works. Give that commentary to Claude as well as the original texts. Second, before you let Claude write a word, add 2 lines at the end of your task description. Those will completely change the quality of your output. Interview me with questions, one at a time, until you are 95% confident you can write this in my voice and for my audience. State your current confidence percentage before each question. It's a powerful prompt. You're asking the model to be explicit about what it doesn't know. Instead of guessing the average of the internet, it stops and asks you the 4 or 5 questions that pull the actual draft out of your head. As an added bonus, you see the confidence number climb with each answer. At 95%, it writes. Also, when you add that last line to a prompt, you'll be surprised how often the model just outputs something for you that it's only 50% confident about. No wonder that hallucinations are still a thing. Most of my best newsletter issue drafts now start with Claude asking me 3 questions I hadn't thought to answer. The first draft comes out of those answers, but the final draft still lives in my edits. Show samples. Make Claude earn the right to write. And there's one more trick worth adding here, which was published by Google Research in 2025. Paste your prompt twice, verbatim, one after the other. AI models process tokens causally, which means early tokens in a long prompt lack full context from later ones. Repeating the prompt lets each token attend to all the others. In the published research, there were 70 tests with Gemini, ChatGPT, and Claude and other models, and prompt repetition won over half the time. It had 0 losses and no extra latency. One caveat here is that when reasoning mode is active, these advantages kind of disappear because reasoning models already restate the prompt internally. And for very long prompts with Claude specifically, you have to expect some pre-filled latency there. It's a free accuracy win for you. One of the things that I noticed that many of my colleagues missed in 2026 is that now prompt engineering is totally kind of over, and it was replaced with context engineering, which means that rewriting fresh instructions at the start of each session, where you have to re-explain yourself from scratch every time, is not the mode anymore. So here's a trick I use. I have 5 markdown files which sit in most projects or get loaded at the start of a fresh writing session. They all follow the same recipe. 1. Identity. Who you are, who you serve, what you sell, the position you hold in your market. 1 page where the model just reads this first. Very, very powerful to position yourself before the model generates any output. 2. The voice samples that I talked about. Your 5 best pieces, full text, annotated, basically the output of that interview trick that we talked about earlier, but saved as a permanent voice sample. Just make sure you update it with a new piece of writing that outperforms an older one or one that you simply love more than the other ones that you've used before. 3. A voice profile. You want to store the patterns that you've extracted from these samples, like the sentence rhythm, the opening rhetoric moves, the closing rhetoric moves, maybe some verbal tics that you got. I just let Claude generate this from your samples, save the output, and of course update it after any time you do heavy editing to find more patterns that you didn't know you had. 4. The banned vocabulary. These are the 3 layers that I talked about at the beginning. You can load them in each session where you need them. And as for the others, you make sure to update them after painful editing sessions. 5. Specific audience. This is an extension of 1, where Claude just writes better when it knows your very specific reader. And that includes their daily frustrations, the language that gets them going, or the language that turns them off. I'm thinking about a 1,000-word markdown doc about one reader persona. And of course, you can swap that out if you're writing for different reader personas. This file adjusts your writing more than any other file in this folder. There's just 2 simple rules that I would encourage you to follow for this folder. Rule number 1. Load all 5 at the start of each session where they're relevant for you. Rule number 2. Update these files only after you've spent some time painfully editing your writing, not every single time. It's a simple 5-file system that you can use in Claude projects or folders, and that just helps you create writing that sounds a little less like a polite stranger talking and reads a little more like a version of you that actually knows what it wants. So these were some simple tips that helped you raise the bar in your AI output. You switch from positive preferences to negative constraints. You make Claude interview you until it's 95% confident that it is on task. You paste your prompt twice for better accuracy with no added latency. And you load 5 context files at the start of each session where that context is necessary, or you link them directly in your Claude MD file. All of these simple changes compound fast and they allow you to use AI at an expert level. But all of these moves don't work if the actual task that you give the model is still vague. Specifically, if it's vague in 4 different dimensions. And most of the prompts that I see people start with are good at giving 1 dimension but leaving out the other 3 dimensions. Having a folder provides you with a system, but creating a proper prompt anatomy is what fires up that system. So I recorded a prompt anatomy video that drives everything that you've just learned: task, context, input data, output format. It's the missing link that brings the actions in this video to your actual AI drafts. Click here to watch it next.